Education 2360 students. I hope you had a great week last week. Just to recap, last week we finished out our 2-week module for Module 6. So you were supposed to be turning in the fieldwork Part B, and you had your discussion activity for Module 6 as well as your Module 6 quiz. So this week, we are actually starting our very last module. So we were in the last 2 weeks of school, so that means that classes end on April 28th. So we are working in Module 7. I wanted to go ahead and just jump on in to the video. So the overview of Module 7 really is for you to look at what you've been working with in your case study. So you've had lots of case study projects with the case study child that you chose. And so we're going to be looking at those inclusive programs. And what does that word inclusive mean? We're also going to be looking at, with our assignment, creating an adaptive lesson and looking at behavior as well. And it will be with the same case study child that you've done the entire time. I have went ahead and graded lots of our assignments, so everything should be caught up. If you think you're missing something or if you don't see grades for something, please get in contact with me. I'm pretty good about communicating when things are missing, but if you see something or a grade that's not complete yet, please reach out. I have not graded the fieldwork Part B yet, so if you realize that your grade's not there or see it's not there, it's because I haven't graded. I'm still in the middle of grading those. But as soon as I grade the Part B, I will go ahead and email you that it's been graded. You can see your feedback. So remember, the field work has to be completed to receive a grade for this course. This is taking the place of that time when you would go into the classroom. So you're using these alternative videos. So it's important for you to complete them. So looking at yourself and reflecting on the case study assignment and the case study child that you've been working with or working on over the last few weeks, I want you to kind of reflect on your role as a teacher and what role do you play in inclusive programs. So that's really where our focus is going to be in this module. So in this module, of course, you're going to have textbook readings, you're going to have readings and videos within the modules themselves for 7.1 and 7.2. And there will be links there. For assignments to submit, you will be submitting your behavior and adaptive lesson for your case study child, and you will also be participating in a reflection for this course. So our learning objectives really are for you to identify those characteristics among teachers, you yourself, of young children or early childhood in inclusive programs. So we're going to look at the challenges and issues that we're facing today in early childhood special education. And we're also going to be looking at professional organizations that are relevant to early childhood and special education. Of course, everything that we're accomplishing in this module is going to support our course outcomes. Right? So we're going to be able to identify, recommended practices and elements for inclusive early childhood programs. We need to know and understand the cause, classification, and characteristics of developmental disabilities. And you will be looking at that when you do the adaptive lesson or the behavior lesson. And the last one is you really have to know and understand what part do you play when you're trying to work with a team. So you're going to be the coordinator with parents and working with community and school and resources. So all these things play a big role. And where do you fit in? So I have some guiding questions for you to think about before you actually start the module. So make sure you look at those. Okay, you will be reading Chapter 11 in your Exceptional Child textbook. Now, this textbook really lends itself well to not only what we're studying, but for you to think about what role you play. So the chapter is really talking about how can you be an effective teacher in these inclusive programs. I also have a link here for you to look at. It's an extra resource, and I feel like you should read that as well. Okay, so your vocabulary words are listed here. These are things and concepts I really want us to look at. Some of them we've seen before. Some of these go along with your text. Others are going to be found in the lessons themselves. Now, in lesson 7.1, we really start to look at children with disabilities, right? And we're going to start to look at early childhood in the sense of some children stay at home, some come to classrooms. So it really matters that we have children who are understanding how to be part of a group and interact with peers. And be in social settings. This is very important for them, and it matters that they do this and that they become active members and are viewed as a member of the community. So I'll have a little video here for you that I'd like you to look at. Okay, so what role do you play as an effective teacher? So there's a lot of things that you have to think about. You have to think about those children who have IFSPs, right? You have to look at students who have special needs or unique needs. You have to look at all the other students you're supposed to be supporting. So there's a document here that I've put that's from the DEC, the Division of Early Childhood of the Council of Exceptional Children. And this document is really just aligning the standards, right, that are going to impact you when you are in the early childhood centers. So make sure that you look at that. We also look at the personal characteristics, right? So yeah, it's good to be able to have good social skills and collaborate with others, right? That's just part of good teaching. But good teaching is more than that. We really have to try to figure out, how can I learn how to be more patient, right? And that's something that they found when they interviewed lots of parents of children who have exceptionalities, is that some parents felt that the teachers didn't have enough patience, right? And this is something they need to work on. So there's a video here. It's very short, and it's really discussing about how the teachers and their demeanors really affect the classroom and children in their learning, and even their interactions with one another and with the teacher. So one of the goals that you have as a teacher is to make sure not only that you're meeting the needs of all those and that you're helping to promote those positive classroom experiences, we have to look at what are we doing that makes sure that we are allowing these children to have a great, valuable experience, right? We want them to learn. We want them to construct knowledge. We want to promote positive social moral development. How are we doing that? So these are things that you need to be looking at. Okay. And throughout these two lessons, you're going to see that I might throw a pop quiz page in here. Remember, anything that has like a quiz or an assessment piece is always good for you to do, because this allows you to get feedback to see if you are actually understanding the content and relating to the content. Okay, so that's all of lesson 7.1. So now 7.2. In this, we're going to switch roles a little bit deeper, right? So we're looking at children who are maybe on the poverty level, so maybe more of a socioeconomic status. And we're looking at these children and the risks of developmental problems that they have or could have. Okay, so this is going to talk about homelessness, those who are exposed to drugs, poverty, those sorts of things, and how they play a part in the child's development. Okay, so of course, if we're going to be talking about issues in the inclusive environment in today's time, we're also going to be addressing diversity, which is a big thing that we have to think about. So there's a whole section on here. There are lots of resources and links for you to click on. There's a really good article as well that I'd like you to look at. Okay, so when we're going to talk about diversity, we're also going to be talking about poverty and homelessness and how is that affecting? And we're really going to be focusing on Tennessee, in the state that we live in, and also in American homes today, that this is a problem and it's a growing problem. So I want you to read that section. So then we move on to special health needs, right? So a lot of time we think about meeting the needs on their IEPs or IFSPs, but we don't stop to think about also a lot of times children who have special needs or exceptionalities or disabilities, they also may have some medical issues and needs as that need to be addressed as well. So this is just letting you see one of the problems one of the medical issues that children have, especially early childhood, is that they're addicted to narcotics and opioids, right? So this is a disorder where babies are addicted, also called as neonatal abstinence syndrome, okay? So this is where they were exposed to lots of drugs and substances while they were forming in the mom's womb. So then they have to deal with that withdrawal, opioid withdrawal. So this is really staggering, and it's a little sensitive information, but I felt like it was important because these are the things that you're going to be dealing with. These children will come in and they do start developmental issues related to this. So these are things that are going to affect that child's development and their needs, and this is something that will affect your classroom. So it's important that you're aware and that you know everything that you need to know about that child's health issues and about this problem that's growing as well. Okay, so when you're talking about being a professional teacher, we have to think about how you prepare. So what do you need to do to be professional? So this section is really great. We have some links from the Tennessee Department of Education I want you to look at as well. Here's a really good resource talking about the variety of professional organizations when we're talking specifically about early childhood. So it would be good for you to save this for later to use as a resource. So one of the most important things that we can do as educators is to advocate for these children. We also need to encourage parents to be advocates for their own child. So this is really talking about, it has a video, but also a link talking about what role do you play in advocating for those children. So now we're going to look at our casework, okay? So I mentioned that for these 2 weeks in this last module, you have activities that you're going to have to do. So the first thing you're going to do is the discussion activity. Now this one is just basically a reflection. This is just reflecting back and figuring out what you learned, right? So I'm asking you to think about these things, like what was the new information that you learned in this course? What was the most surprising or new way of thinking about something for you? What topics do you feel like is going to influence you in your own classroom? And what do you think you want to know more about? How could you go about learning more about this? So you need to get at least 350 words minimum. And this is just really great for you to go and read other people's thoughts as well. So I want you to participate in this discussion activity. Okay, so if you click on that, that shows you the rubric. Okay, so the 2 assignments that you're going to have to do is the behavior and adaptive lesson plan. So once again, you're going to use the same child that you've used the entire time. So what you're going to do is, if you are in Module 7, okay, you scroll all the way to the bottom, I'll get there. You're going to see Module 6 case study work. You will need that in just a minute. I just wanted to point out where it was. Let's go back to Module 7 case study assignments. These are your individual child that you picked and that you've worked with the entire time. So what you're going to do is complete 2 assignments once again on that same case study child. So the first thing you're going to have to do is called Adapt a Lesson Plan. So this means that you're going to select one of the lesson plans for your case studies child classroom, okay? And these are the files where I just was at. So let's go back. We're in Module 7. We're going to scroll all the way down, and we're going to see Module 6 case study work. Okay. There is part of your work that you're going to be doing. Back up. I'm confusing you. Hold on just a second. If we're in, this section here is for your behavior. So I'm going to rename it right now while I'm talking to you so we won't get confused. Module 7, behavior. Okay, so this is for the behavior part. This second section, these two are for your lesson plan. So if you'll look, we're in Module 7 case study assignments. Sorry guys, it's been a long week. I'm sorry for confusing you. So what you're going to do on the lesson plan is you're going to adopt a lesson plan. You're like, well, where do I find the lesson plans? It's the next module. It's the next section. So if you scroll down and you click on Module 7 lesson plans, you're going to see the lesson plans. I only want you to click one of these. So you're going to select one of them, okay? Then you are going to download to your computer, and then you're going to save it because you're going to add to it. So you're like, well, what do I add? Let's go back to where we just were, which is Module 7 case study assignment. So what you're going to do is you are going to pick that lesson plan, and then you're going to plan something, right? And adapt and modify it a little bit. And the directions are here, but the main thing I want you to do is you need to have certain components in this lesson plan. So you got to have the title, you need to have the objective, where you can add an individual objective. Remember, it has to be based on your case study child, okay? But it must remain as the lesson objective for the entire class. You're going to have your standards alignments, your materials, your format. This means are you going to do small group, individual, large group. You're going to have the lesson procedures and then the assessment. Okay, so think about the child's specific strengths and needs in their case studies that you've been reading. So think about what adoptions, modifications, any kind of accommodations. You're going to use that to help build that lesson plan. Okay, so the lesson plans are listed there for you, but you're going to have to modify them. So we need to figure out what objective we want to meet. We have to make sure that we adapt it, right? So we have to make sure that we are following all the components. Remember, there's a need. We need to make sure we're looking at the environment. Any adoptions or suggestions that we have to make, any modifications, that's going to make sure that that child's needs are met. Okay. I have a checklist here that just lets you know that you've met everything. And then, of course, here's the rubric. Now, the second part is your reflection and participation on the case study assignments that you've done. So I want you to read through this and think about how you can improve. Because remember, even though we didn't do this case study assignment as a group, which I have before, this is just letting you see when you are working as a teacher, you are going to be collaborating with another teacher or with an assistant, right? So you are going to be part of a team. This section really lets you look at how you participated. How would you do on a team if you were really working with this case study child and you were really working on a group? So I want you to answer these questions, right? And how can you improve? You need a minimum of 400 words. Okay, so what you're going to do, this is what you've learned, right? So that's the first thing you're going to do. and put that in there. I would do that first. The Dropbox, if you'll scroll down, you're going to see the behavior, the lesson adaptation, and the participation reflection. The participation reflection is what we just talked about. How can you improve? Pretend that even though you did this case study assignment alone, that this was a real child you had in your classroom and you're working with the other second teacher, right? Or the special ed teacher. How can you improve? Reflect on that. You're going to do 400 words minimum. You're going to put it in a Word document. This is going to be submitted here. Your lesson that you're adapting and modifying will be put here. The last part that you're going to complete is the behavior plan. So go back to Module 7, scroll all the way down, and you're going to see behavior casework. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the same case study child that you did the lesson for. You're going to look at one of the challenging behaviors that your child has, and you're going to do a behavior plan for them. Okay? Once you do that, make sure that you look at everything and you've got everything that you need for the behavior plan. So when you do it, go to Assessments in Dropbox. And scroll down and you'll see behavior plan. And that's where you're going to put that at. I know this is a little confusing because it started out that way. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I know it's a lot. The first thing I would do is just to do the participation, what you've learned, right? So do that. That's under discussions. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, what you've learned. I would do that first. Then, if I go to Dropbox, I see that I've got 3 more. The second reflection is just how well you did. If you were working on all the case study assignments you've done, if you were working in a team, you're going to be answering all those questions. The other 2, you're going to be doing your behavior plan and your lesson adoption. So those are the 2 that you're going to do. Let's go back to week 7. The behavior plan is the very first one, right? So when we're talking about an FBA, I just wanted to note, that means a functional behavior analysis. This means that you have a student who maybe needs a behavior intervention plan, right? So this project is really asking you to complete a version of the ABC form hypothesis, right, of function. So what's the trigger? What's causing the child to behave this way? And what you're going to do is select one of the challenging behaviors in your group. So here are your case studies. You pick the same one you did, and let's just click on Maria, for instance. Say you've had Maria the entire time. You're going to see there's 2 behavior concerns listed here for Maria, okay? What you have to do is you got to pick one of those behaviors, and you're going to figure out, how can you address this behavior, right? So you want there to be improvement. You want that child to be able to successfully interact with peers, and you want to make sure these behaviors go away. So you have to do an intervention. So you're going to click on Behavior Plan Chart. And you're going to complete this ABC. So trigger is the antecedent. So what happens right before the behavior occurs? So here's what the behavior is doing. What happened right before the behavior occurred? And then how is the child, what do you do as a teacher once this behavior happens? So what's immediately following that behavior? Why do you think the child is doing what they're doing? So what's your hypothesis of function? So what's triggering it? Why do you think the child's doing that? And then I want you to fill out the bottom section. How can we prevent these triggers? What new skills do we want the child to learn? And what new consequences? How am I going to respond when they do the challenging behavior? How am I going to respond when they do the new skill that I'm teaching them? So this is called a behavior intervention plan, and that's what I want you to complete. Okay, so that's one of the projects. The other thing that you're going to do is your lesson plan. The lesson plan is right here under lesson plans. You're going to click one of them, not both, because Clayton has two. You're going to pick one of them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to adapt and modify this lesson. So if you'll look, it's telling you that you need to adapt it. So once you select one of those files, you really need to think about any modifications you may need to make sure you meet their needs, right? So you're going to select one of those plans and make sure that you have the following components: the title, the objective, the standards, the materials, the format, the lesson procedures, and the assessment. How are you going to assess a child met that objective? And just make sure you read everything in here, and make sure whenever before you submit it, you look at the checklist and the rubric. Okay. And like I said, I'm available to meet over phone or Teams if you have questions. I know it was a little confusing, but just feel free to reach out. That will take care of your last 2 weeks in this class, guys. Don't forget, please go to the discussion board first. Do that first thing and tell me about your learning in this class, because it really helps me be able to see how I can change things, improve this class for the next set of students I get. Alright guys, as always, I hope you take care. I'll be in touch soon. I'll probably put another video up, because even though this is the last module, we'll need to be talking about your post-test course feedback for the entire course, and then we will be talking about the makeup quiz period for those of us that maybe missed quizzes. So I'll be sending a separate video talking about that. Well, until then, guys, take care. Bye-bye.